What if I told you that one of the most exhausting battles in life doesn't happen out there in the world? Not in an office, not in a classroom, not on a battlefield, not in the streets, but inside your own mind. No one can see it. No one can hear it. And often, no one even knows it's happening. Yet for millions of people, it feels completely real. A silent struggle that can drain energy, steal sleep, and turn ordinary moments into endless mental loops. And the strangest part? It often begins with something incredibly small. A text message, a conversation, a decision, a mistake, a comment, a memory, or even a single thought. Then something unusual happens. The thought doesn't leave. It stays. It circles. It repeats. It comes back again. Your mind has created hundreds of scenarios, most of which may never happen. This phenomenon has a name: overthinking. Thinking too much. But why do we do it? Why does the human brain, one of the most sophisticated objects in the known universe, often trap itself inside endless loops of thought? Why can we spend hours worrying about things that haven't happened? Why do we imagine problems before they exist? And why does trying to stop thinking often make us think even more? Tonight, we are diving deep into one of the most common experiences of being human, a habit shared by students, employees, entrepreneurs, artists, scientists, and nearly everyone who has ever lived. This is the story of why we overthink. Let's begin with a surprising truth. Your brain was not designed primarily to make you happy. Its primary purpose is much simpler: to keep you alive. And for most of human history, staying alive was incredibly difficult. Imagine living 50,000 years ago. No hospitals, no supermarkets, no police, no smartphones, no modern medicine, no safe homes with locked doors. The world was full of dangers: predators, disease, starvation, natural disasters, hostile tribes. In that environment, the ability to anticipate problems was extremely valuable. Imagine two prehistoric humans. The first one constantly thought, there might be a predator behind those bushes. The second one thought, it's probably nothing. If a predator was actually there, which person was more likely to survive? The cautious one, the suspicious one, the one who considered potential threats before they appeared. Over thousands of generations, natural selection favored brains that noticed danger, brains that worried, brains that prepared, brains that imagined what could go wrong. In other words, a certain amount of anxiety was useful. It helped our ancestors survive. And that ancient survival system still exists inside us today. The problem is, the world has changed much faster than our brains. Most people today are not worrying about lions hiding behind bushes. Yet the brain still searches for threats. And if it cannot find physical threats, it starts looking for psychological ones: social threats, financial threats, emotional threats, future threats. Suddenly, an unanswered text message feels dangerous. A job interview feels dangerous. A presentation feels dangerous. A small mistake feels dangerous. And the brain activates the same old system, the system that evolved to protect us. This is one of the roots of overthinking. Your brain is trying to help, trying to protect you, trying to prepare you. But sometimes it becomes too enthusiastic. Now let's talk about something many people have noticed: why does overthinking often happen at night? Have you ever experienced this? During the day, your thoughts seem manageable. You're busy, working, studying, talking, watching videos, scrolling through your phone, handling responsibilities. Then night arrives. The world grows quiet. The distractions disappear. And suddenly, your mind becomes louder. Why? Because during the day, external noise competes with your internal thoughts. At night, that competition disappears, and thoughts that were buried beneath activity begin to rise. Unfinished worries, regrets, questions, fears, memories, all waiting patiently for silence. The human brain dislikes uncertainty. In fact, uncertainty can feel more stressful than bad news itself. Imagine waiting for exam results, waiting for medical test results, waiting for an important message, waiting for an interview response. Often, the waiting feels worse than the outcome. Why? Because uncertainty creates a gap, and the brain hates gaps. It wants answers. It wants certainty. It wants predictions. It wants control. When those things are unavailable, the brain starts generating possibilities. Unfortunately, it tends to generate negative possibilities first. This tendency is known as negativity bias, a built-in preference for paying attention to threats. From an evolutionary perspective, this made sense. Ignoring an opportunity might cost you a reward. Ignoring a threat might cost you your life. As a result, our brains became experts at spotting problems, even when those problems don't exist. Imagine someone hasn't replied to your message. There are many possible explanations. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're asleep. Maybe their phone battery died. Maybe they haven't seen the message. But an overthinking brain often jumps somewhere else. What if they're angry at me? What if I said something wrong? What if they don't like me anymore? What if I ruined everything? And suddenly, an unanswered message becomes an emotional crisis. Not because of reality, but because of imagination. And that brings us to one of the most important facts about overthinking. Overthinking often disguises itself as problem solving. It feels productive. It feels responsible. It feels like you're working toward a solution. But many times, you're simply running in circles, like a person on a treadmill, moving constantly, yet going nowhere. The brain often believes that if it thinks long enough, it will eventually find certainty. But life doesn't always provide certainty. Some questions cannot be answered today. Some answers only arrive with time. Some outcomes remain unknown until they happen. Yet overthinking refuses to accept that. It keeps searching, keeps analyzing, keeps replaying, keeps predicting, long after useful thinking has ended. Now, let's talk about the past, because overthinking isn't only about the future. It's also obsessed with history. Have you ever suddenly remembered something embarrassing? Something from 5 years ago? 10 years ago? Maybe even 20 years ago? A moment you wish never happened. And suddenly, you feel embarrassed all over again. Your heart reacts. Your stomach tightens. Your face feels warm, as if the event happened yesterday. Why? Because emotional memories are powerful. The brain marks them as important, and important memories are easier to access. The strange thing is, every time you revisit that memory, you strengthen it. You reinforce the pathway, making it easier to recall again in the future, creating a cycle. The more you think about it, the easier it becomes to think about it again. But perhaps the most important thing to understand is this. Overthinking does not mean you are weak.
It does not mean you are broken, and it certainly does not mean there is something wrong with you.
In many ways, overthinking is a side effect of having an extraordinary brain. A brain capable of imagining the future, learning from the past, planning ahead, solving problems, creating possibilities. These abilities helped humans build civilizations, develop technology, explore space, create art, and transform the world. The very same abilities that allow us to achieve incredible things can also trap us in endless thought loops. In other words, thinking is not the problem. The problem occurs when thinking becomes circular, when analysis becomes paralysis, when caution becomes fear, when preparation becomes obsession, when reflection becomes rumination. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden inside overthinking. Not every thought deserves endless attention. Not every question requires an immediate answer. Not every possibility deserves your energy. Sometimes, the wisest thing a person can do is not think harder, but accept uncertainty. Accept that some things cannot be solved today. Accept that some answers will arrive later. Accept that life contains unknowns. Because the truth is, life will always be uncertain. No amount of overthinking can remove every risk. No amount of worrying can guarantee success. No amount of analyzing can predict the future perfectly. So the next time you find yourself trapped inside an endless loop of thoughts, remember this. Your mind is trying to protect you. That is what it evolved to do. But protection can become excessive. And sometimes, the solution isn't finding an answer to every question. The solution is learning to live with questions that have no answer yet. Because most of the disasters we imagine never happen. Most of the fears we rehearse never become reality. And many of the battles we fight exist only inside our minds. Because in the end, overthinking is not proof that you are weak. It is proof that you are human. A creature capable of remembering the past, imagining the future, and trying to make sense of an incredibly complex world. But every once in a while, it may be worth giving your mind permission to rest, to stop searching, to stop replaying, to stop predicting, and simply exist in the present moment. Because life does not need to be fully understood before it can be lived.